The first thing you learn delivering pizza is that people don't order food the way they order anything else. When they buy shoes, they're polite. When they buy a TV, they ask questions. When they order pizza at 12:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, they act like you're a summoned creature, like you exist in a hot bag somewhere and they just pressed a button to unzip you. I'd been a Domino's driver for 9 months, long enough to memorize every pothole in our delivery zone and to know exactly which houses would tip and which ones would stare at you like you'd personally raised prices. I was the closer on weeknights because I didn't have kids and I didn't have enough self-respect to say no. That night, it was raining hard enough to blur the streetlights into watery halos. Rick, the manager, had his headset on, scraping burnt cheese off a screen with the flat edge of a spatula like he was shaving an animal hide. The store smelled like garlic oil and sanitizer and the weird sweetness of dough proofing in the back. It was 12:03 a.m. We were officially closed. The closed sign was flipped. The lobby lights were dimmed. The only sounds were the dishwasher chugging and the occasional pop from the cooling oven. I was counting my tips at the cut table. Mostly singles, a few fives, and one sticky 10 that smelled like cigarettes, when the order printer shrieked. Not a normal chirp. A long, tearing scream of paper and ink. Rick flinched like it hurt him. He tore the ticket off and stared at it for a little too long. "Are you kidding me?" he said. I leaned over. "Last-minute order." Rick didn't answer right away. He kept looking at the ticket, his eyebrows pinched together like he was doing mental math and losing. "Cash," he finally said. "Of course it's cash. Where to?" He turned the ticket around so I could read it. Delivery. One large hand-tossed. Half pepperoni / half mushroom. Extra cheese. No cut. Payment. Cash. Address. 1313, Willowbrook Avenue, Unit B. Instructions. Back entrance only. Do not ring. Do not knock. Call when arrived. Willowbrook. My stomach tightened. Not because Willowbrook was dangerous. At least not in the "you're definitely getting robbed" way. It was just wrong. The road ran behind the old county hospital, the one they'd shut down 15 years ago and never bothered to demolish. The city had built a few budget apartments nearby, but a big chunk of Willowbrook still felt like it belonged to the hospital. Overgrown lots, cracked sidewalks, and streetlights that either flickered or didn't work at all. Unit B also didn't make sense. Willowbrook addresses were mostly houses or duplexes. The apartment complexes had different numbering. Rick watched my face. "You're the only driver. You're telling me you can't just cancel it?" He shrugged, but it wasn't casual. "It went through online. If we cancel, corporate asks questions. Just take it, drop it, come back. 10 minutes. I picked up the ticket. The paper felt off. Like it held moisture. Like it had been in someone's mouth. Back entrance only, I read. What back entrance? Rick had already turned away, back to his closing checklist. Call when you're there. Get paid. Don't overthink it. I should have listened to the part about not overthinking, but delivery driving is 90% overthinking while you're alone in a car at night, and the other 10% is lying to yourself that you're fine. I boxed the pizza, one large, extra cheese, no cut, and slid it into the hot bag. The bag was warm against my hands, comforting in a way that didn't last. Before I left, I looked at the make line screen to see if there were any notes in the customer history. Sometimes it would say, "Do not forget garlic," or "Allergic to onions," or "Tip at door." This one had only a name. Customer. Willowbrook. No first name. No last name. Just the street. Cute, I muttered. Outside, the rain hit like thrown gravel. My Civic smelled like heat-soaked cardboard and Parmesan packets. I threw the hot bag on the passenger seat and started the car. The store's LED sign buzzed behind me as I pulled out, the blue and red glow reflecting off the wet asphalt. For a second, it looked like the puddles were full of neon blood. I drove with the window cracked because the inside of a delivery car fogs up fast in the rain. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet leaves and the faint metallic tang you get near old industrial buildings. My phone, clipped to the vent, struggled to load GPS. I had service, but it was spotty. The route highlighted itself reluctantly, like it didn't want to show me where I was going. As I got closer to Willowbrook, the town thinned out. The strip mall lights disappeared. The street names turned into older ones. Ash, Elm, Willow. The kind of names people chose when they still believed trees made a place wholesome. The county hospital rose out of the darkness like a shipwreck. It was huge, 5 stories, brick and concrete, with broken windows that caught the occasional flash of lightning. A chain-link fence surrounded it, but the gate was always bent open like someone had peeled it back with a crowbar and never cared enough to fix it. The city had put up "No trespassing" signs years ago. People ignored them. Teenagers went in for dares. Junkies went in for reasons I didn't want to understand. Sometimes the fire department went in because someone had lit something stupid on fire. I passed it slowly, trying not to look at the windows. You know how you can feel someone watching you even when you can't prove it? The Willowbrook Avenue was worse. The streetlights were spaced too far apart, and the rain turned the gaps between them into pools of complete black. Houses sat back from the road, half hidden behind hedges and trees. Most windows were dark. 1313 was at the end. I found the number on a mailbox that leaned like it was tired. The house itself sat behind an unruly row of shrubs. 2 stories, old siding, and a porch that sagged in the center. The driveway was narrow, cracked, and filled with puddles. There was no sign of an Unit B. I pulled in anyway and killed the headlights. Immediately, the dark got heavier, like my car had been holding it back. I checked the ticket again. Back entrance only. Do not ring. Do not knock. Call when arrived. Fine. I grabbed my phone and hit "Call customer." It rang once. Then it clicked. But nobody said hello. At first I thought it had gone to voicemail, but there was no voicemail greeting. Just quiet. Not the normal quiet of a phone line either. There was a faint, steady sound under it, like air moving through a long pipe. I said. Domino's delivery. I'm here at 1313 Willowbrook. The quiet continued. Then something came through the line that made my scalp prickle. Breathing. Not mine. Slow, controlled breathing, like someone holding themselves perfectly still. Hello. I said again. The breathing stopped. A voice, low and careful, came through. Back door. That was it. 2 words. Okay, I said, because what else do you say? The line went dead. I sat there for a second, phone still at my ear, staring at the dark house. Rain ticked on my windshield. The wipers squeaked once, like an impatient throat clear. I almost drove away. I swear I did. My hand even went to the gear shift. But I imagined Rick, the manager, looking at the returned pizza and the cash order and me trying to explain the customer was creepy. He'd give me that look that said, "You're making your anxiety into everyone's problem." So I got out. The rain soaked through my jacket immediately. My shoes sank slightly in the wet gravel. I walked up the side of the house, following the narrow strip of mud between the siding and the bushes. No lights came on. No motion behind windows. The house stayed as dead as the hospital down the street. I found the back door. It wasn't really a door. It was one of those enclosed porch entrances, a small addition that looked like it had been built from whatever materials were cheapest at the time. The wooden steps were slick and bowed. There was a second door behind the first, leading into the house. The outer door was already open. Not wide open, just cracked, like someone had opened it and changed their mind halfway. A warm, stale smell leaked out. Not food. Not laundry. Something old. Something damp that had been trapped for years. I stopped on the bottom step. "Domino's," I called, keeping my voice light. "I'm at the back entrance." No answer. The inner door, the real one, had a curtain over a small window. The curtain didn't move. I took 1 step up. The porch floor creaked sharply. Too sharp. Like it wanted me to know I'd been heard. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text, from an unknown number. "Leave it. Wait." That made me pause. It was so abrupt it felt like a command, not a request. I set the hot bag down on the porch floor, unzipped it, and placed the pizza box just inside the outer door, where it wouldn't get rained on. The ticket said cash. I didn't see any envelope or any sign of money. I waited. Rain hissed on the roof above me. Water dripped in slow, heavy drops from the gutter, each one landing with a wet smack on the porch step. A minute passed. I was about to call again when the inner door latch made a small, precise sound. The inner door opened just enough to create a thin line of darkness. I could see a sliver of the inside, a narrow hallway and wallpaper peeling in strips. No lights. Something moved in the gap. Something low. Not a person standing. Something closer to the ground. A hand slid into view. I've seen a lot of hands doing this job. Hands holding cash. Hands holding credit cards. Hands holding babies while the other hand signs the receipt. Drunk hands. Shaky hands. Tattooed hands. This one looked like it belonged to someone who never saw the sun. The skin was pale and faintly bluish, stretched tight over knuckles. The nails were short but ragged, like they'd been chewed down. The hand placed an envelope on the porch floor. Then it withdrew. The door stayed cracked. I stared at the envelope. It was brown, unmarked, slightly swollen like it held more than bills. "Thank you," I said automatically, even though nobody had said anything. The voice from the phone returned, now muffled by the door. "Take it. Go." I should have done exactly that. Instead, I did what all tired people do when they're close to being done with their shift. I went into autopilot. I picked up the envelope. It was warm. Not, someone held it in their hand, warm. More like it had been sitting under a heat lamp. I turned it over. No writing. No seal. Just a flap folded down. Against my better judgment, I lifted the flap slightly and peeked inside. It was full of money. Too much money. A thick stack of bills, folded and pressed tight. My brain instantly did the math of tips and delivery fees and cash orders. This was more than the whole ticket could possibly be. "Hey," I said, leaning closer to the door crack. "I think you gave me too much." Silence. I tried again. "The total is..." "Domino's." I stared at it so hard the streetlight changed and the guy behind me honked. I drove the rest of the way back in a kind of numb trance, like my mind had stepped aside and let my body do the familiar route. When I pulled into the store lot, Rick was outside smoking under the awning, sheltering from the rain. He looked annoyed until he saw my face. "What's wrong?" he asked. I held up the envelope. "They gave me way too much cash." Rick's eyes lit up in the way managers' eyes do when they smell money. "How much?" I pulled out the stack enough that he could see the thickness. Rick whistled. "Holy. I don't think it's a tip," I said. "I think it's wrong. That house is wrong." Rick snorted, but it wasn't confident. "People on Willowbrook are weird. You get the pizza there. They told me to leave it." Rick's expression shifted. "You left the pizza without payment?" "I got payment." I slid the receipt across to him, the hospital one. "But I also got this." Rick's fingers pinched the paper like he didn't want it touching him. He read the header. His face drained a little. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "It was in the envelope." Rick swallowed. He glanced over his shoulder at the dark store windows like he expected someone to be listening. "Mark," he said, "my uncle worked security at that hospital before it closed." My throat tightened. "Okay." "He used to tell me about the deliveries." Rick cleared his throat and tried to laugh, failed. "Back in the day. Not pizza. Like supplies. Medical stuff. Sometimes food. They'd bring it in through the back because the front was for visitors." I stared at him. "So?" Rick tapped the hospital receipt with a trembling fingernail. He said there were wards they didn't talk about. Places where the doors stayed locked and the staff didn't keep their shoes. "What does that mean?" Rick's eyes flicked to my shoes, then back to mine. "It means, just, go wash up. I'll handle this. I'll log it. You're done." I didn't like the way he said, "handle this." Like it was a thing you could handle, like a broken sink or a customer complaint. "I'm not keeping this money," I said. Rick nodded too fast. Yeah, we'll put it in the safe until we figure it out." I should have taken the envelope and left right then. I should have driven to the police station. I should have done anything besides stepping back into that bright warm store that suddenly felt like a set built to pretend the world was normal. I went to the sink and washed my hands until they were red. When I came back out, Rick was standing by the office door, envelope in his hands. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 minutes. "The number," he said. "What number?" "The customer number." He held up the ticket from the order. "It's not a cell. It's not an online relay. It's a landline." "So?" Rick looked at me like I was being deliberately stupid. The hospital's landlines were never fully disconnected. They just stopped ringing. Half the lines still have dial tone if you go in there with a phone. My mouth went dry again. "Are you saying they ordered from the hospital?" Rick's voice dropped. "I'm saying the callback number on this ticket matches a line registered to Willowbrook County Hospital." The store felt suddenly too quiet, as if the dishwasher had stopped without me noticing. "That's impossible," I said. Rick's eyes were glossy. "Yeah." We stood there, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant rattle of rain against the back door. Then the order printer screeched again. Rick and I both flinched. He snatched the ticket as it printed, and for a moment he didn't move. His lips parted slightly. His eyes scanned down. He looked up at me. "Mark," he said, voice thin, "it's the same order." I stepped closer and read it over his shoulder. Delivery. 1 large hand-tossed. Half pepperoni/half mushroom. Extra cheese. No cut. Payment. Cash. Address. 1313 Willowbrook Avenue, Unit B. Instructions. Back entrance only. Do not ring. Do not knock. Call when arrived. Note. You forgot the cut. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my legs. I grabbed the pizza cutter off the counter without thinking, like a weapon. I didn't cut it. It said no cut. Rick's hands trembled. "They're correcting you." The printer kept feeding paper. Another ticket. Same order. Same address. This time the note read, "Note. Bring the shoes." Rick jerked the paper away like it burned him. "Nope," he said, too loudly. "No. That's not happening." He stormed to the phone and slammed the receiver into his hand, jabbing buttons like he was calling 911. But he didn't call 911. He called the customer. He put it on speaker. The line clicked, and that same long pipe sound filled the store. Breathing. Then the voice, clearer now, as if it was closer. "Back door." Rick's face contorted with anger that looked pasted over fear. "Listen," he snapped, "we're closed. We already delivered your order. Do not call this store again." A pause. Then, softly, "You're late." Rick swallowed. "No. We're done." The voice changed slightly. Not louder, just different. Like it was smiling. "You can bring it," it said, "or we can come." The store lights flickered. Not a dramatic horror movie flicker. A single, subtle dip in brightness, like the building had taken a slow breath. I looked at the front windows. Outside, the rain slid down the glass in endless sheets. The parking lot was empty except for my Civic and Rick's truck. Rick's mouth moved, but for a second no sound came out. Then the line went dead. The order printer screamed again. Rick didn't even look at the ticket this time. He just tore the paper off and crumpled it, hands shaking. "Get your stuff," he said to me. "Go home." "What about?" "Go," he repeated. "Now." I didn't argue. I grabbed my jacket, my hat, my keys. As I pushed through the back door into the rain, I heard the printer start up again behind me, relentless. In my car, I sat for a second with the engine running, staring at the store through the wet windshield. The fluorescent lights inside made the kitchen visible. Empty prep tables, shiny floors, the heat cabinet glowing faintly. Rick was in the middle of it all, hands on his head, looking like a man trying to hold his mind together. Then I saw movement by the front of the store. At first I thought it was a reflection, rain, headlights, something. But it wasn't. A figure stood just beyond the reach of the lot lights, right at the edge where the parking lot met the dark street. It was too far to see details. Just a silhouette. It didn't walk like someone waiting for a ride. It didn't shift its weight. It didn't check a phone. It stood perfectly still, as if it had been placed there. I told myself it was a person. A customer. A homeless guy. Anybody. Then a second silhouette appeared beside it. Then a third. Lined up, evenly spaced, facing the store like they were waiting to be served. I put the car in reverse and backed out so fast I nearly clipped the curb. As I drove away, I forced myself not to look in the rearview mirror. Because I knew if I looked, I'd see them moving. And I didn't think I could handle confirming that. At home, I double-checked my locks 3 times. I left the lights on. I sat on my couch with my shoes still on, listening to the rain hit the windows like someone tapping with fingernails. My phone buzzed at 1:11 a.m. Unknown number. A text. Back in trance only. I stared until my eyes watered. Another buzz. Do not knock. Then, you're late. I turned my phone off. I didn't sleep. Every time the house settled and creaked, I imagined wet footsteps on my porch. Every time a car passed outside, I imagined it stopping. Around 3:30 a.m., the rain eased to a steady drizzle. And that's when I heard it. A sound at my back door. Not a knock. Not a doorbell. A slow, careful testing of the handle, as if someone was making sure it was locked without wanting to be heard. I held my breath so hard my chest hurt. The handle stopped. Silence. Then, very softly, right against the door, so close it felt impossible that it could be outside, someone spoke. "You can bring it," the voice said, calm and patient, "or we can come." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even swallow. After a long minute, the pressure of presence faded, like a weight lifting off the air. I stayed frozen until the sky began to lighten. When the morning finally came, I checked the back porch. There were footprints in the wet wood. Bare feet. And arranged neatly beside my welcome mat, as if left as a reminder, was a single pizza box, soaked through, softened by rain, but still intact. No logo. No printing. Just plain cardboard, as if someone had made it by hand. I lifted the lid. Inside was nothing but a row of torn receipts, perfectly dry, stacked like bills. All of them printed with the same order. One large hand-tossed. Half pepperoni/half mushroom. Extra cheese. No cut. And at the bottom, in a space where a tip would go, a note had been written in dark ink that bled into the paper fibers like a bruise. "Bring the shoes." I didn't go back to Domino's. Rick texted me once, just once, to say the store phone wouldn't stop ringing, even after he unplugged it, even after he took the whole unit off the wall. A week later, the location closed for renovations. A month later, the building was boarded up. But I still see delivery cars on the road at night, those little lit-up signs on top, cutting through rain and darkness like tiny ships. And every time I pass Willowbrook, every time I see the silhouette of the old hospital beyond the trees, I think about that order, how it printed after closing, how it kept printing, how it corrected me like I'd broken a rule I never agreed to. Because the scariest part isn't the voice. It's the certainty in it. The way it talked like it wasn't asking for pizza. The way it talked like it was collecting something. And the way, sometimes, when I'm half asleep and the house is quiet, I swear I can hear a familiar sound from far away, faint under the hum of my refrigerator. The shriek of a ticket printer. Calling me back to work.